It's a warm summer night in Louisville, Kentucky, and just 14 minutes away from Churchill Downs is the now defunct Louisville Motor Speedway, where there would not be horses but horsepower on display, as the TNT Renegade Moz trucks made their third trip. It would be on night one where two championship favorites with different stakes would meet in the semifinals. What the fans didn't know at the time is they were about to bear witness to something legendary. Nearly 35 years on from this night, this would be cited as the greatest monster truck race of all time. But why? I think it's time to take a deeper look. Let's get started. We'll start off with the venue, Louisville Motor Speedway. Despite being closed for over 20 years, this is still a beloved venue for monster truck fans. This place would mark the first instance of figure 8 racing being introduced, first ran in 1988, where Stomper most prominently would suffer a gnarly crash. The truck he ran against during that crash would be the first part of the story as far as the trucks go, Bigfoot, specifically Bigfoot 4. Even by 1988, the truck was 4 years old and had a reputation for being a warhorse, especially let alone by 1990. Thing is though, this wasn't the Bigfoot that was meant to run that night. Bigfoot, having lost the 1988 championship to Rod Litzow in USA 1, took the 1989 season off with Bob Chandler designing a brand new truck, arguably the most revolutionary truck of all time, Bigfoot 8. Here's a little history lesson. In case you couldn't tell from the footage, the standard for trucks by this time was leaf spring chassis with steel bodies, significantly heavier, bouncier, and slower than the modern machines. The Bigfoot team spent 1988 through 1989 designing Bigfoot 8, with a full tube chassis and significantly more suspension travel than trucks at that time. Really, the closest equivalents were Barefoot and Taurus, but both ran exclusively USHRA events. For TNT, Bigfoot 8 was the only one of its kind by 1990. Really, the only one that toured within that ballpark would be the 1989 champion Equalizer, as they would run coil shocks. This league of its own for Bigfoot 8 showed as it basically stomped ass and was winning constantly. 12 out of 15 events, an 80% winning average. Other drivers were getting pissed, feeling that this truck was a cheat code and made showing up every week pointless, as this machine was so advanced, no one had a shot. The team took a year off to develop a machine with big money backing while the rest of us had to keep running to keep our lights on? How's that fair? One of the most vocal opponents was Scott Stevens and King Crunch, who made his thoughts known weekly. He was not making any illusions. Ironically, prior to an event in his home state of Texas in Dallas, TNT would make the decision call to ban Bigfoot 8, but would not strip them of points. John Pyatt would drive in Dallas, but heading into Louisville, he would be injured where Bigfoot's A primary driver Andy Brass would fill in. Looking at the points, the reigning champion Equalizer had just eked ahead, despite having drama of their own with star driver David Morris suddenly leaving the team and newcomer Greg Holbrook having to keep pace. Now with a slower truck and a points deficit, Bigfoot needed a strong showing here to have a prayer of a title. Someone who needed a bigger prayer was last year's runner-up in the points, Gary Porter and Carolina Crusher, the final piece of this puzzle. Gary Porter, known as Mr. Consistency, was always a strong competitor each week, and despite not having the flash of USA 1, Equalizer, or Bigfoot, Porter would always push the Carolina Crusher to its limits, win or lose. By the time of 1990, his truck would be about 2 years old and kept serving him well. He wasn't entirely out of the points race, but was now in fourth in the hunt behind Equalizer, the reigning champion, Bigfoot, the controversial team of this season, and King Crunch, the leader of the Resistance. The season was only halfway through, so Gary could still charge a campaign, and a strong showing here could be what he needs. Andy Brass would qualify first, with Gary not far behind, averaging about 40 seconds on the lengthy track. First round would see Gary defeat the sponsored Micro Machines truck with Kurt Fisher, despite Micro Machines finishing first, as both truck damage and a rule violation for cutting through the infield grass would lead to a 1-2 combo, putting the newer Chevy on the trailer. Meanwhile, in a Ford versus Ford battle, Bigfoot would suffer mechanical problems against Jersey Outlaw, but in a massive break would get a second chance in the next round against King Crunch. Perhaps in a way to tell Scott they'll put their money where their mouth is, Andy Brass would smoke the Texan to secure an outright victory. Gary Porter would secure a bye run, as the other yellow Chevy Thunder Chicken would break and give Gary an automatic bye in the semifinals, where we are now. Army Armstrong and Scott Douglas are on the call.
line, Army, in every run tonight.
Look where Andy Brass moves. He moves to the outside. He's going to have to clean the engine out, keep wrapping the engine. They've got to get fuel to the engine. The fuel mixture is not right. It's stuttering about 50 feet off the start line. And there it goes again. Now the Chevrolet goes out. Gary Porter is going to go for everything he knows he's worth, because when Bigfoot does come alive, here he comes. He's going after the Chevrolet right now.
But he's almost a half lap down, Army. You can see Crusher has already finished his job. He gets a little sand on his back wheels. Now Bigfoot bounces at the end, and Crusher is firmly in control.
He's not a half lap anymore. Here comes Bigfoot working the inside. Andy Brass doing a great job. They're going to go to the jump side by side. Scott, Chevrolet, Ford. Who's it going to be?
Bigfoot caught it. Unbelievable. And let's wait till they get the photo finish. But Army, I think Andy Brass won the race. Look at him in Louisville. They've gone nuts.
Man, I'm about to go nuts down here. That was the best monster truck race I've ever seen.
Breaking down play-by-play, off the start, Porter gets a hole shot as Bigfoot struggles. Bigfoot would be half a lap down by the first pass. Crusher on the outside, with Bigfoot charging on the inside, and in a close finish, Bigfoot secured an insane come-from-behind victory. The commentators cannot believe what they saw, as Andy Brass would go on to the finals, but unfortunately fall to equalizer. This is the beauty of a long track like Louisville, where in many races during this time, you would win based entirely on hole shot. We had a full drama play out turn by turn. No one was fully in contention, and everyone was kept on their toes. There was still one more show left, as in the second show, Gary Porter would fall in the semis to Jersey Outlaw after taking out Equalizer, while Bigfoot would work back up through the brackets in the finals to defeat the Outlaw, overtaking the points battle by the end of the weekend. Later through the season, Bigfoot 8 would return as Equalizer staged a comeback and Carolina Crusher inched closer to the Ford. However, as soon as they returned, it was business as usual, beginning to chip away at the deficit. The championship would be decided back in Louisville, now in the Freedom Hall, and Gary Porter would debut a brand new Carolina Crusher, taking cues from the Bigfoot and Equalizer teams, tube-frame chassis, and greater suspension travel. Bigfoot would secure the championship over Equalizer, while Porter would finish third in what would be one of the final TNT events. What would follow that night in Louisville and the championship battle? Well, for Andy Brass, he would become prominent in the new Penda points race that became the biggest title during the early 90s, winning the 1992, 93, and 94 titles before retiring after the 1994 season. The only season where he drove where he didn't win a title would be 1991. Who would that go to? Why, Gary Porter, of course. Porter's career would extend much longer than Brass's, as Gary would drive Carolina Crusher through 2000 before moving up to Gravedigger in 2001, circling back in 2015 to Carolina Crusher and retiring in 2017. The final link to this race, as the Louisville Motor Speedway would close in 2001 and TNT Motorsports would go defunct the following year, merging with USHRA. Really, this race highlights the best of the earliest years of the sport, wheel-to-wheel racing and drivers running like there's everything on the line. Several companies had tried an all-racing league to bring back the spark, but honestly, ever since freestyle became prominent, the focus has shifted. That's not to say there still aren't all-time classics in the making even today, but looking at the bigger picture, this race had implications that stretched all season long, all to be followed along each week. If you haven't watched back the old TNT events, I highly recommend it. There's a level of drama and reckless abandon that's hard to replicate even today. Two men went for broke that night, leaving us with the greatest race of all time. However, I think I've gone off track, and I'll see you all next time.